For many of us, buying a new car can be a difficult experience. High prices, high pressure, and too often we end up with car payments that strain our budgets.
Money Maze is made possible in part by a grant from the Fannie Mae Foundation. Fannie Mae, showing America a new way home. And by Equifax, committed to information leadership for the information age. Additional support provided by these contributors.
Welcome to Money Maze. I'm Charles Ross. Whether you look at cars as simply transportation or see them as a reflection of your personal style, automobiles are big-ticket items. So it's really important to get the best value for your money. You'll get to learn negotiating techniques, how to find out if a used car is worth your while, and if leasing is right for you. For some of us, buying an automobile can be fun. For others, it's a necessary evil. Cars are one of the most expensive things we'll buy. So it's one purchase you'll really need to think about. And a little bit of preparation can make a big difference when it comes to buying a car.
This is an LS Rodeo, and basically I think this is going to meet all your guidelines as far as a sport utility vehicle.
For many of us, buying a new car can be a difficult experience. High prices, high pressure, and too often we end up with car payments that strain our budgets.
There is a substantial price difference between the Trooper and the Rodeo.
Sam and Amy Carroll are buying a new car, but they're looking forward to it. First, they decided what kind of car they wanted.
A Nissan Altima is what we decided on, and then we were really going to get the leather and everything.
Then, after careful consideration, they decided to be more practical.
We decided on a 4x4. We like to do a lot of outdoor activities.
We've got a dog that has a penchant for riding in cars, and we decided that probably wouldn't be very good. We like to go to the beach a lot.
So they narrowed their choices down to an Isuzu Rodeo, a Nissan Pathfinder, and a Mazda Navajo. Then they checked Consumer Reports to compare models, everything from fuel efficiency to resale.
5-year resale is 70% of the original, so that's pretty good. Miles per gallon, 16 in the city, 19.
Consumer Reports also gave them an idea of how much they should pay.
So they've got like what the suggested retail price is, what the dealer's cost is, and what our target price should be. We're looking around 20,000 and in. So the further in we can get, the happier I am.
Can I put this one back?
Sure.
One sitting here?
There we go. So you've got good room.
Yeah, it is. It's surprisingly roomy.
The only real...
Being prepared, they say, takes the pain out of car buying.
I think the more research we do, the less pressure we're under, because we know what the price we should be paying for is going in. We know what questions to ask or feel more comfortable about the questions we're asking.
The only thing this doesn't have is four-wheel drive, the one we're in.
Exactly.
When they finally decide on a specific model, they'll draw up a list of options and send it to several dealers.
And then we'll probably fax out a list of everything that we want in that model to several different dealers and just tell them that we're ready to buy in the next couple days, and whoever comes back with the best price for this vehicle, that's who we'll buy it from.
Well, I think if you know what you want and you've done the research and you're ready to go in there and know what to ask for and know what you should get, that it makes it a lot less painful.
If you're shopping for a car, you might want to know what the term price actually means. The invoice price is what the manufacturer charges the dealer. You probably won't find this posted on the car. The base price is the manufacturer's suggested price, excluding options. The Monroney sticker price is the base price plus the factory-installed options and destination and delivery charges. Federal law requires this sticker to be posted on the car. Finally, there's the dealer's sticker price. This is everything included in the Monroney price plus any options added by the dealer. Are you intimidated by car dealers? My first guest can give you some tips. Let's meet consumer expert Clark Howard. Hi, Clark.
Hey, Charles.
Welcome to Money Maze.
Thanks.
Buying a new car. Many people have a fear of buying a new car. Why do they have such a big fear of buying a car?
Because all the knowledge is in the hands of the dealer. The dealer's in the superior position, and you're playing in their ballpark. You walk into the dealer, and you're on the away team.
When you come to negotiating a good deal, what are some of the things that people need to be armed with to make sure they get a good deal?
They better know what the dealer paid for the car up front. Absolutely number one. And it's real easy to find out. Do you know how to do it?
How do you do that?
Very simple. Go to a bookstore first. The bookstore, there are going to be a number of new car pricing guides. Cost about $5. You buy one of those, it'll tell you exactly what the dealer paid for that car. Not just the car, though, all the options, too.
So once you have that information, then what do?
You don't go to the dealer.
You don't go to
think
the
you're going to
dealer?
go to the dealer. No. You go right to your telephone. Think how many dealers you can call in the time that you would go to visit just one.
Ah.
And instead of you being in their ballpark, you're in your own ballpark.
So you call the dealer up. What are you going to interview them?
You ask for a new car salesperson.
Okay.
You say, I'm interested in buying this car in any of these colors with these options. What will you sell me that car for? And by the way, I already know what you paid for that car.
How will they respond to that?
About 2 in 3 will respect you, and they'll come back with a quote. About 1 in 3 will say, buddy, don't worry about it. I'll tell you the best deal if you come in after you've called everybody else. That person's not playing the game fair, and you're done with them.
So don't deal with them then?
Absolutely not.
So you know what the dealer's paid for the car.
Right.
You're calling, trying to find out who's going to give you a decent deal.
Exactly.
So now that you've winnowed it down to a couple of dealers, now what?
Well, I go by my instinct about which dealers seem the most honest and forthright with me on the phone. And that's who I go to, even if they were not the absolute cheapest.
So
Isn't that a surprise?
So if they weren't the cheapest, the one that was, I guess, feels most honest or feels...
Well, let's say the price was just $50 difference or $100 different. In that case, you should go with who you had the most trust in. But if you trust the people who were the cheapest, then you've got the best deal of all. And you go there, and as long as they play the game straight when you get there, you're in business.
So now you're on the lot. Should you go
Right.
by yourself when you go?
Versus going
With somebody, taking somebody with you to kind of, help you out.
If you know what car you want already, what you need to take with you is your knowledge.
Okay.
You need to take with you your price book. You should have a worksheet where you've worked out what optional equipment you wanted on the car. And you should have the vehicle ID number with you that the salesperson told you you'd be buying on the phone. So you can compare that to the paperwork you're presented at the dealership.
Now, you're on the lot. Hey, let's go back a little bit. Is there any particular time of the week or month or year that it's better that you'll get a better deal on a car?
Well, there's one time of year that's just my favorite, and that's just before Christmas.
Just
Because
before Christmas.
nobody's thinking of buying a car just before Christmas. People are into the holiday spirit. They're into things other than buying a car. But there are many people who believe that you go in on a Monday during the day, that you go during a time when the dealership is empty, that you tend to have more leverage during that time. But I believe those things may make a difference at the margin, but what makes the most difference is you being as knowledgeable about what the dealer paid for that vehicle as they are.
So now you're on the lot, and you go a couple of rounds with the salesman. Is that normal?
Well, I hope you don't go any rounds with the salesman. I hope that you've already negotiated the parameters of your deal on the telephone. If you have a fax machine, you have them fax you an offer. So when you walk in, there's no subject to interpretation there. You've got the information right in your hands. And all you should be doing when you get to the dealership is working out the papers.
Is there any percentage amount or amount over invoice or over the cost that you should be looking for, targeting? Because I guess the big question is how much over the cost of the car should you be targeting?
There is no magic bullet number there. And the reason is it's strictly controlled by supply and demand. Right now, the sport utility vehicles are enormously popular. So for those, you would pay a substantial amount over dealer cost. But if you're going to buy a car that's a slow seller right now, which is just about any small car in the marketplace, you might be buying it below the actual dealer cost.
In terms of having leverage, should you just have one car in mind or a couple of cars in mind, just in case the dealer is trying to put together with one, say, manufacturer, one dealer for all streets, you should have several models that are very compatible?
Well, as much as a car costs, I like for people to buy a car they want. that the primary issue should be that this is a car that I'll love, not that this car might be slightly cheaper than that car. If you don't love the car that's slightly cheaper, you're still spending a lot of money. So I know there are opinions like in Consumer Reports about how you should have 2 or 3 models in mind, and that's fine as long as you like those 2 or 3 models.
Right.
And then it would be a decision made on the cost of that vehicle. And you also want to look at similar cars or corporate twins. For instance, the Toyota Corolla and the Geo Prism are virtually identical cars, but the Prism will usually be cheaper.
So they're identical cars. Are there
Identical cars.
So a lot of cars are made by the same manufacturer or made from the same plant. They just have different labels or brand names on them?
That's right. They'll come under more than one nameplate.
So now this whole big movement towards no hassle, no haggling. First of all, is it working?
The dealers who have been successful in no haggle say it's working great, but most dealers continue to feel that they make an overall larger profit if they're able to do the traditional horse trading. That's because most consumers don't prepare themselves. They don't know what the dealer's actual cost is on the vehicle. They don't know much about the cars. They're buying a car on emotion. And you know, most people buy a car within 3 days of when they think they're going to look for one. They just get all caught up in the hysteria and they buy.
So can people get a better deal with the no haggling, or should they really want to go to a dealer that doesn't have that kind of policy? Because a no haggle basically means that this is the price we've set, we're not going to negotiate, and either take it or leave it.
No haggle actually may generate the dealer a larger profit than they would get on average in a haggle environment, but the hassle factor is eliminated. And for many buyers, doing away with the hassle makes it worth maybe paying a little higher price for the vehicle.
Do you think many people walk into a dealership and pay the full price, don't even negotiate? They say, okay, I'll take this car, package it, let's go? Do you think many people do that?
Maybe a long time ago, but I don't think people do that anymore. But the problem is that people don't know what the full price is.
Yeah. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Clark Howard. Of course, one option if you're really trying to save money is to buy a used car. A used car's past history can be a stumbling block. The best way to protect yourself from a deal that sounds too good to be true is check it out.
When Tim Messer needed another car, he considered the options.
I looked through the new car lots and also looked at leasing. And for the car I wanted, I happened upon a used car that was very affordable. They say that a new car is your worst investment because you immediately lose a couple of $1,000s.
Tim found this Acura Legend through a dealer. He checked with the original owner to find out, among other things, why he was selling it.
The car sale was a product of a divorce, according to him.
But just in case there was something wrong with the car, Tim took an extra step.
What did they say? How's it going?
Tim contacted Roy Kunzman, owner of Car Checkers, a company that's hired by car buyers to give an independent assessment of what autos are worth and what's wrong with them.
I'd like somebody to touch every button. I haven't touched everything on the car. I haven't used the cruise control. I haven't ran the windows up and down, tested the radio. I just feel that for $99, if they find just a couple of minor items that can be fixed quickly, it'll still be well worth it.
You know, you want to look for the good deal, but, you know, the old saying, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. In other words, you know, if the car's worth $15,000 and they want to sell it for $10,000, you know, it's time to get it looked at and see what's underneath the surface.
Like evidence of a wreck under the surface of a nice paint job. Using a sonogram-like device, Roy checks the paint depth. If the depth varies more than the factory jobs do, chances are the auto's repainted. Car Checkers also test the electrical and mechanical systems. The results are printed out for the prospective buyer along with an appraisal. The full checkup costs $99. Just to examine the engine costs somewhat less. And the verdict on Tim's car?
They didn't get the oil filter tight enough, or could have a faulty gasket, and it's got a little bit of a leak there, so you do need to get that taken care of so it doesn't cause a problem.
Okay.
Armed with an appraisal, Tim's ready to go back to the car dealer.
I would say do your homework. Definitely get a average trade-in, get a retail value on the used car and a loan value, so that when you go and you're going to deal with people who do this every day, so you need to be well informed and have your homework done.
Here are some pros and cons of buying a used car. On the positive side, you skip the worst of depreciation, and the price is lower on both the car and the insurance. On the negative side, Used cars can lack warranties, and of course, you may be uncertain about the quality you're getting. If you're thinking about buying a new car, you may want to consider leasing. My next guest is Paul Hirschberg. Paul, welcome to Money Maze.
Thank you.
Leasing a car. Do many people really know what they've done when they lease a car?
I think some people do, Charles, some people don't, but I think doing some homework, as Clark suggested, is important in the leasing process as well. Many of the times when clients or customers go out and lease cars, the homework isn't done. It's done on an emotional decision. It's based on monthly payment rather than good research and knowing what cars are best to lease.
Why have leasing has become so popular? I heard like 30% of all new car purchases are now under a lease, up from about 5 or 7% say 10 years ago. Why has leasing become so popular?
I think that disposable income for consumers hasn't increased in the same level that the car pricing has increased. So the only reasonable alternative left for customers or consumers when they go out and buy cars is the leasing option.
So let's talk about some of the pros and cons. Let's start with the pros. What are some of the advantages of leasing a car?
I think the advantages of leasing really are lower monthly payment for many people, little or no down payment, less haggling and confusion because it's set on a monthly payment price rather than an overall purchase price. It simplifies the whole ownership process because the car is usually in warranty during that period of time. Additionally, when the car needs to be disposed in the end, rather than having any hassle with the resale, it's easy for someone to just take the car and give it back to the car dealership or the institution or the bank, whoever controlled the leasing contract at the time they leased their car.
So for the most part, leasing allows you to buy a more expensive car with less cash in and a lower monthly payment.
Exactly. I mean, I've heard stories of people that said that they would go ahead and lease a car and with the money they saved each month, they would take it and travel and go on trips. I mean, that's kind of a silly way to view the process, but they could take the lower monthly payment and have the rest of that money and hopefully save it or invest it, you know, so that they could use that to have a bigger nest egg rather than going out and spending that money, you know, frivolously on you know, some silly durable good that wouldn't help them any, or a trip, or you know, dining out on the town.
So now let's look at some of the disadvantages. What are some of the downsides to leasing, things you have to be careful about?
I would say that the wrong cars to lease can be a problem in the wrong situations and the wrong leasing instruments. I think sometimes consumers go out and lease the wrong cars. I mean, wrong cars, Charles, I'm talking about cars that depreciate rapidly. There are certain cars, if you look through guidebooks, that have great resale. Cars that resell well are better better cars to put on a leasing instrument because there's less depreciation and the payments are lower.
So give us an example of a car that would be good on a lease and one that would be bad.
Sport utility market's the fastest growing, you know, booming segment of the car market. That group is an excellent lease candidate. The reason they're an excellent lease candidate is they have premium resale value, so you get the most dollar amount of car for the lease payment because the car depreciates slowly.
Now let's look at some of the ones that are better. I mean, I'm talking about the ones that are worse.
Something that would be a rapid depreciator, something that maybe got sold in large quantities, a domestic car, Ford Taurus might be a good example, or some car that's dated, that's not going to resell very well, it's an old body style, and it's about to go out. That would be a poor car because there's large quantities of it. It's supply and demand. As Clark said on new cars, same on used, it hurts the resale value. The better the resale value, the better the lease animal in most cases.
Is there a category of consumer that is a better candidate for a lease? In other words, who should really lease a car?
Well, from a financial institution perspective, the financial institutions are looking for people that are more creditworthy and have more means, homeowners, people that have slightly larger incomes or more stability. As far as which consumers should lease versus which shouldn't, I think someone who drives moderate to mileage is important. Someone who drives very excessive mileage, it's very hard to make a leasing instrument work because the payments would have to be so large for them to lease it to figure in the extra mileage that they might as well go ahead and just be buying it. So that would not work. Other consumers that should be leasing potentially, people that have any business deduction where it has a higher percentage of business use would be a little bit better leasing candidate. I think it also is going to help anybody who frequently wants to trade cars. Someone who wants to keep their car in a buy and hold position is probably not the best lease candidate. I mean, my philosophies are usually to keep premium reselling cars on shorter timelines. 4 years is about the length of time a consumer wants to keep a car. The new car dealers usually will not keep in the used car department cars that are older than 4 years or 50,000 miles. So consumers should be thinking in terms of keeping their cars less than 4 years or 50,000 miles. That's a good lease customer.
Someone who's looking to turn in a car every couple of years, they should consider leasing.
Sure.
How about, I guess, one category that comes to mind is outside salespeople, or salespeople who are on the road a lot. They're traveling a lot of miles, put a lot of mileage on a car.
Heavy business use there. That's not a bad example of leasing, but as I said in my earlier example, higher mileage is harder for a customer to go through and lease. If they picked a premium reselling car and also had the depreciation figured in for the higher mileage, I think it would make good sense.
Is it easier to lease a car than, say, to buy a car and get it financed through a financial institution?
I think,
and here I'm referencing, I guess, folks that have perhaps some problems or challenges from a credit perspective. They've had bad credit, bankruptcy. Are they easier to get into a lease than, say, financing through a bank?
More difficult. You will see some...
You're saying they're more difficult to get into a lease?
Yes. Okay. You know, the credit worthiness is going to be more important for a leasing customer because the financial institution is taking more risk. They're taking an asset and putting it out there with very little money down, very little security, and they're hoping that the lessee is going to take care of the car and service the car and do what they're supposed to do. And usually people that are on very stretched incomes are aren't very credit worthy or are moving around frequently and aren't really showing the stability. The financial institution isn't going to be comfortable leasing them a car. Okay.
How about figuring out the price of the car? A lot of times in all the paperwork, I understand there's a task force coming up with some guidelines, a checklist for dealing with leasing, and that's going to be coming about in the next couple of months or so. But how about finding out the price? Is that in the lease agreement? In other words, can you negotiate that price?
Certainly.
And make sure you get the lowest price going in?
I will not to circumvent what you're saying, but I think that when the consumers are leasing the cars, they must realize that every $1,000 they save in the car is usually, on most cars, in the average price range, $18 to $20 a month. So a lot of screaming and yelling and fighting isn't going to make a whole lot of difference in the instrument when it gets down to it. I think that the pricing, the way contracts are written, the way the federal disclosure laws are written, there isn't a specific issue taken with what the institution is buying the car. When you're leasing a car, the institution is buying it and then they're leasing it to you. That's the way the agreements read. So I think that what's important is to find the car, negotiate a good price, and make sure that the contract represents that price. Really what consumers should focus on lease contracts or lease agreements should be the end balance at the end of the term when they get rid of the car, the residual value, I call it the residue left over. That's one thing they should be focusing on. The terms of the agreement to the extent that if the customer had to give the car back early. Okay, in other words, what their liability would be on the contract as far as what they'd have to pay back to the financial institution if they had to terminate the contract early. I think they should be studying that. And they should also be studying what car is placed into the instrument. Once again, something that's very, very good as far as the resale perspective. Different contracts will generate different payments because the internal interest rates are different from different financial institutions. Some of them just loan the money out at different levels. So I think through studying and showing 2 or 3 different alternatives, I think the consumer can prepare themselves, through studying it and shopping and finding out where the best instrument is.
Let's run down all the things you need to know before you sign that lease agreement. The total cost of the vehicle, which includes what the car costs, what the leasing company paid, and costs of options. You need to know taxes, title, and insurance costs. You may opt for insurance or warranty items. Your initial payment, which could be made in cash or trade-in. The initial payment can lower your monthly payments. The interest rate and residual value also can affect your monthly payments. The residual value is the car's estimated worth at the end of the lease. You need to know what it would cost if you terminated the lease agreement early. You may be required to pay all remaining payments plus a termination fee. And you should know what excess mileage will cost. To help you figure lease costs, the Consumer Task Force for Automotive Issues provides a worksheet. Write to Reality Checklist, P.O. Box 7648, Atlanta, Georgia 30357. Or on the internet, the email address is gopher.essential.org.
Finding your way out of debt is a long struggle. Most people don't run up huge bills overnight, so it takes a while to pay them off. Sometimes it takes years, but it can be done. Over the next 6 weeks, we'll take you through the often difficult journey of financial recovery. You're going to meet Alfie Lingo. Her financial problems started early.
I probably had a total of about 6 different kinds of cars, maybe about 7.
Alfie Lingo had 7 credit cards, including MasterCard and Visa. She was a student at Valdosta State, and she says credit cards were easy to get.
You would just have a card that had your name, address, where were you enrolled in school, were you full-time, part-time, and you just signed this card, that was it. And that was mailed off, and soon you got a card in the mail, a credit card.
They were easy to get and easy to use.
I remember one time I have a box, box radio. You always have those in the dorm room. And it got stolen. I needed another one, and they run about $150 or so. And I just went to Sears and bought it.
Alfie only made the minimum payment, and month after month, her debt piled up until she graduated in 1991.
Coming out of college, there was $6,000 in credit cards alone. Maybe $3,600 in student loan, and maybe I had about maybe about $9,000 for a car note. So that's a lot for one person.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Charles Ross. We'll see you next time on Money Maze.
Money Maze is made possible in part by a grant from the Fannie Mae Foundation. Fannie Mae, showing America a new way home. And by Equifax, committed to information leadership for the information age. Additional support provided by these contributors.
The preceding program was produced in cooperation with the nonprofit Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Greater Atlanta. The CCCS offers help with personal or family budgeting and solutions to problem debt. For more information, the toll-free number in Georgia is 1-800-251-2227.